Good evening. My name is Lamin Jai. This is News Review. Thank you very much for being there. Coming up on the show today, UDP battles blowback after party's decision to accept Lamin Babadindin Jobate as member. Health Minister Dr. Ahmadu Lamin Samate says Gambian Women's Life Matter group is a political group. My guest today will be the National Unity Party presidential candidate, Mr. Abdoulie Ebrima Jammeh. He'll be my guest today. This is going to be his first sit-down, one-to-one interview since his emergence as the battle axe for one of the country's newest political parties there, National Unity Party. Before all of that, we will quickly see what the newspapers say today. Let's see the Standard newspaper. The lead story is on a veteran politician Laminwa Juara saying Juara asked opposition to unconditionally back Dabo, saying the leader of the dormant National Democratic Action Movement, NDAM, has called on opposition leaders in the country to put aside their individual differences and rally behind UDP's Usainu Dabo to unseat President Adama Barrow in December election. Another story there on the Standard is saying IEC releases nomination requirements for presidential candidates, saying the Independent Electoral Commission has released the summary requirements for the nomination of presidential candidates ahead of the December polls. According to the release from the IEC, a candidate shall be a citizen of the Gambia and also must have attained a minimum age of 30. Also, a candidate must complete senior secondary school education and also should ordinarily reside in the Gambia for 5 years immediately preceding the election. Another story there on the Standard is saying political leaders commit to violence-free election. At least 5 political party leaders have signed the Inter-Party Committee Peace Pledge, dubbed the Janjambure Peace Accord. All the 18 required or registered political parties in the Gambia were represented at the meeting organized to commit their leaders to sign the Peace Accord. However, out of the 18 leaders, only 5 were present. Citizens Alliance Dr. Ismaila Sise, National Convention Party NCP Lamin Diba, All People's Party APP Dr. Baibiran Jany, People's Progressive Party PPP Keba Jallow, and Gambia Action Party GAP of Musa Usainu Yali Bachile. Let's see the Point newspaper now. One of the stories there is saying Fonyi appeals for good roads, electricity and skills center, saying inhabitants of the 5 Fonyi districts have urged the government through President Adam Barrow to help them with good roads, electricity, gardens, and skills centers, among orders during the latter's during President Barrow's Meet the People's tour meeting there. VP says, that's Vice President says, Africa is grappling with negative effects of conflict, insecurity. During the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Vice President Dr. Aissatou Toure stated that Africa is grappling with negative effects of conflict and insecurity, arguing that the challenge of addressing the root causes of conflict and climate change requires greater global solidarity and UN leadership. That is it for the newspapers. We will take a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you very much and welcome back. UDP is battling a blowback after publicly endorsing and welcoming former Justice Minister Lamin Babadindin Jobate into its fold. Well, Mr. Jobate was adversely mentioned as one of those people who really took part in the violation of the rights of citizens in the country. In February, he testified at the TRRC where he rejected claims or charges that he cut former rebel commander Balo Kante's nipple. He was somebody who also defended the illegal execution of 9 death row inmates by former President Jammeh there. So over the weekend he joined UDP, but this did not go down well with a lot of citizens. More in this report.
United Democratic Party has come under fire for welcoming former Justice Minister Lamin Babanding Jobate to its fold. Mr. Jabbeh officially joined UDP on Saturday in Sarija during UDP's rally there, and UDP leader Ousainou Darboe personally welcomed him to the party. Darboe and Jabbeh are blood relatives.
Mbafala Babadin Jabbeh, welcome back to United Democratic Party.
Welcome back to UDP.
Yakumo Bane ko Badim Fay Suntukun Momo Long.
We are only Halaka. Amela ide Jitere, we are going to end up Jitere will end up. The Misaleto Musika
Alhamdulillah, Iman Song, Molie Badingta, Molie Bading Tombong, Yanana Nimsa, Alhamdulillah, Iman Song Wala.
You Alhamdulillah, Godiyata Allah. By you, Musika, Ankara Jamani will put a Musika, Ngopoyalu, Ngavaya Nimsa, Ajaman, Goyetili Madam Allah.
Bansifan and Tentu. Yabunya Menke na Luntang la.
Mr. Jabbeh is accused of serious human rights violations on the former President Jammeh's rule. He appeared before the TRRC in February, where he denied quoting Balo Kante's nipple. He also justified the illegal killing of 9 death row inmates by Jammeh. But speaking at UDP meeting, Mr. Jabbeh said Darboe will win the election.
Kita nyawo nyanding inya dal na ka ba barim fay sundu ko muta kering liye badim sorong ya fay dolle bi dala cikala ya kay tati ado itina e mari do kuno la woto alata kola bi ni ya yente be loru nya han fambe diamulo no alaji konte men fel loru ndeng Alaji Konte menke UDP aninta kun nda kasabela no sakon sa dan blafo bari fulol ko di haboya ala ngata ro ninta meta o ninta boroma me ko matulal be galon nsa jube nyoboren wala be kegan nsa jube jumana dala ba manda pour ka borindiro ka do nde amuta ko mo UDP lete Adiara me akwara me ala menda wobuka bayno lawyer Darboe wole be nyimba ko marra wassalam.
But there has been a fallout regarding Mr. Jabbeh joining UDP. Even some UDP supporters have condemned the move. Some activists, including Madi Jabbeh, have also joined in the condemnation. How UDP goes about digging itself out of the firestorm remains unclear. Mati Senghor, TFN News Review.
Now, Gambian Women Lives Matter is an organization, non-governmental organization that is out to ensuring that the issue of maternal mortality in the country is a thing of the past. But authorities do not trust this group. Well, yesterday the health minister said that this is a political group. The Gambian Women's Life Matter group is comprising politicians, people who are hiding behind activism, when in fact they are politicians. More in this. Gambian Women's Life Matter over the weekend marched to call for an end to women dying at childbirth. Gambian Women's Life Matter is a non-governmental organization that seeks to end maternal mortality in the country, but authorities have found the group's activities highly suspect. Health Minister Dr. Ahmadou Samate tore into the group on Sunday, saying the group is one comprising politicians who go about deceiving Gambians.
Grupo dobeje
amna bena group bo xamne mu ngi fi
nene meto fo
musu ñoo wax tur
ko meto fa won juna
telu ñoo xam sen tur
kadu ni na ta fa yeto fo
so ñëwé ba nga xam ne wax nga sen tur
e kala fi ke nke tol fo pour que yalo ke la daraja wala faale
dafa melni ñooñu so waxe sen tur dafa melni sen darja yang ko yok
ba ñaaje mbe to fo lay katara mo le filindi kan saté wol kono
way so gisé tamit ñuy jaar ci sen tur dafa melni ñu ngay réral nit
e ka foy ko Women's Life Matter
ñuy wax ne bakari jigen dafa am solo
man sa kundale woloy tolti
dafa melni nguur gi ñoo leen gëna xam ne bakari jigen am na solo
President Barrow le woloy tolti.
President Barrow mo len gëna xamolu.
Wala saba kanyim be kaliye.
Li mota mu leen a defar li lepp.
Bari katay be mol filin de la sate ko.
Ay ñu ngi dem bepp tay ñu ngi réral nit ñi.
E ba fola ko man sa kundate nga be manke to ñaati.
Ñuy wane nguur gi ni nguur gi la loolu yëpp du dëgg.
Kadi ka mim fa fo ma ko understand.
Ñoom seen boppa lu ñoo wax dafa melni ñoom seen boppa fahamuñ ko.
Kadi nene man na si ni Ministry of Health e kacha.
Musu ñoo tok ñëw ci ministre bu xam ne moo yore waru wérgu yaram ñu diisoo ak moom.
Nga kool boye ñoto.
Mu mun leen a tasal yax bi ak jàppa bi.
Bari yaara la ko politiko le fa ba kono.
Waaye ndekete mbir mi yëpp politique la omba.
Bi leen defon do leen natalo kiñe.
Tey la ma ñene ay nataal.
E nim politika groupe do ñaaton ko tatay lote e natalo ke.
Ñu dem am deenañ njiiti politique boo xam ne dem nañ tawa moom ba pare ñu ma moom ab nataal.
Mol min ko musolu niyo tantando e bole lay kada foko alcatre fay kari alcatre kay fari. Mol manke politique mol le di ba.
Ñu nga xam ne ñu ngi wax ne bakkani jigéen yi dafa am solo samaleen bakkani jigéen yi ñoom ñuy jël wax ne sànni leen carte pour ñun sànni leen carte pour ñun tax du mooyu leen ñooñu
do lu beje baadingol be ñu opposition groupe dol kono
ñeneen seen mbokka yaa ngi si opposition groupe yi
e ka ñu ferota
pexe bii lañ takka
e ka musol ka fu ñooma
ñuy dajale ay jigéen
ka fo en tolle be lolalié
ñu leen ay yëgal ne ñu ñoo leen a taxaw
to ñaate bulu
te fekk andu ñoo dëgg
fenkeno la musol ye.
The health minister spoke at President Barrow's nationwide tour meeting in Brikama on Sunday. According to him, Gambian Women Lives Matter members are going around misleading people on the issue of maternal mortality. He said their campaign is all false, that they don't even understand what they are saying because they have never come to engage the Minister of Health for explanation.
Imagine owning a home or service plot, enjoying the sunrise and sunset from a beautiful garden, morning hugs and beautiful moments with your loved ones, the never-ending stories, beautiful memories that will last a lifetime, making and sharing great moments with family and friends. You can turn this into a reality. All you need is a tough home.
Thank you. So my big guest today will be Abdoulie Ebrima Jammeh. Well, Mr. Jammeh emerged as the presidential candidate battle axe of National Unity Party in August, and in September, that is earlier this month, he was officially unveiled at the Sadaura Kereba Jawara Conference Center. He is the presidential candidate of one of the country's newest political parties, National Unity Party. He will be my guest today. This is going to be his first one-to-one sit down since he became the battle axe of NUP, National Unity Party. Interesting times in Gambian politics, proliferation of political leaders. He is one of them. He will be speaking to me exclusively today. Mr. Jammeh, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, Mr. Jai, for having me here.
First, let me congratulate you on your emergence as the battle axe of National Unity Party. Where did you get the motivation, but also are you convinced that you have what it takes to make any headway in politics?
Well, if you ask me that question, I'll say, well, you know, a couple of years ago, maybe even a few months ago, I've been thinking about getting into politics. You may be aware that this party, I'm not one of the founding members of the party. The founders decided that they will not lead the party. I think for good reasons, really. I mean, their philosophy is not to establish individual ownership of the party, but to create a people's party. So I was invited. I understand I was one of the candidates they were scouting for to lead the party. So eventually they approached me, and after thorough consideration, I accepted, you know, to lead the party as a flag bearer. In truth, I think if you ask me whether I have what it takes, that's a verdict to be given by other people. But I assume that, well, taking into account the process that led to my selection as the candidate of the party, they must have recognized something in me that they believe would offer some good leadership for this party and eventually for the country.
But where did you get the inspiration? You are saying until up to a few months ago, you were somebody who was not interested in politics, yet you take or accepted to take this role.
Well, it took some convincing, really, and I believe, from the conversation I had with the team, they are aware of my service to the Gambian nation as a public servant, and they believe that I have the traits of leadership that could lead a party and eventually lead a country. And I believe that when people have that kind of confidence in you, it's something that you should consider and actually have a crack at it.
What is the, I have seen one political pundit say, this is the field of crocodiles and sharks. You have decided to enter that field. What's the objective for you, for Mr. Abdoulie Jammeh?
Well, for me, it's to cleanse it. You know, you talked about crocodiles and sharks, and that's not a very nice image. There's some specter hanging over it. And I think that's the reason why most decent people don't want to try politics. And for a country to move forward, you need decent people, very professional people, who would have a real vision to carry the country forward.
Yes.
So if all of us, well, if I consider myself a decent person, you know, if all of us shy away from politics, we will end up having sharks and crocodiles playing the game. So why can't we have decent professionals, good citizens, clean citizens doing it now? So the whole idea is to dispel that notion of politics.
You said you were not a founding member of this party. There were people who invited you into this party. How did they discover you?
Well, I guess I'm also in the public space. I've been a public servant. I have operated at a very senior level in the public service. I've been Director General of
yes.
Civil Aviation Authority for like 9 years. And prior to that, I was also Deputy Director General for 9 years. And I have interacted with the public, even with the media. And I've interacted with quite a number of people. And I'm sure they must have observed something over that period, you know, to come to that conclusion.
So who did they send to you? Did they send anyone to you?
It's a group of executive members who visited my house and had the discussion with me, and I did not just accept it. I decided that I was going to consult with some good friends and family and some advisors, really, because I know getting into politics is not just about me, it's about my family, it's about my friends, it's about my loved ones, and to have the endorsement for it. So for over a week or so, I was in consultation, and eventually I decided that yes, I was going to have my crack at it.
Since independence, the Gambia has struggled in terms of development, in terms of transformation. You have been in the system long enough to understand or to know this. Would you say you have a very good understanding and grip of the realities of this country?
Well, I have lived it, so I'm aware of it. I have a good understanding of it, and I believe I would know the buttons to press if I'm part of a team that's entrusted to take this country forward. That's for me. That's something I know I wouldn't have much problems with in terms of knowing exactly where to start and to point to the things that are not working well for the country.
When you become president in December, what is the first one priority that you will take care of as a way of fixing this country?
Well, it couldn't just be one priority, really.
There are many priorities,
many priorities,
but
really.
The topmost priority.
Yeah, well, for me, really, I think healthcare, the health system is very appalling. I think agriculture is some area that we need to focus on, our education system. But all of these things you cannot do without the finances. So we also need to fix the finances. We need to know exactly how to create the money to be able to support all our priority projects.
How are you going to create the money?
Well, I think in general, if you have access to our manifesto, we have indicated that we will be expanding the revenue base of the country, first by reducing the corporate tax and to encourage more investment. but also to enhance compliance in terms of tax payments, and also to also streamline and rationalize government expenditure, well, in terms of government institutions, structures, ministries, whatever. We need to be able to make some savings within the economy. But also we would look at possibilities of employing some PPP initiatives, like public-private partnership initiatives, like build, operate, own and transfer models of investment. But we'll also put a lot of emphasis on FDIs, foreign direct investment into the country.
One thing that has, been said is that the bane of, let me put it this way. The reason why the Gambia for so long has not been able to achieve its full potential has to do with corruption. Corruption has been the bane of our development. Someone who served in government, first PMO, you were also at civil aviation. When it comes to corruption, do you have a plan? But before that, when you were in government, what have you seen in terms of corruption? Was corruption rampant? Was corruption something that was existing?
Well, corruption is very obvious to all of us that things are not happening right. People are trudging or messing with public funds. We all know that, so that's a no-brainer, if you like. What I know is, like I said before, corruption is not something that will help our economy grow. The first thing that we need to focus on is ease of doing business, because if you're talking about foreign direct investment, investors want to have some guarantees,
yes,
as to whether they are actually investing in the right place, in a safe place. And that's why, as a party, we're looking at, initially we'll set up anti-corruption commissions, and we'll have whistleblowing, provisions in our law, not necessarily to sort of encourage malice, but is to also protect the interests of government and the interests of the people of, yes, this country. So that we need to do. Okay, if you look at a country like Singapore, for example, they'll tell you that it ranks very high as one of the countries for ease of doing business. And the key enabler for that has been anti-corruption laws, and the fact that they have very tough laws when it comes to corruption and curbing corruption. So I think that's something that we need to look at. But beyond that, we keep saying that, well, sometimes we demand too much of our people. We also need to look at how we overhaul the economy, yeah, the work environment, the salaries that people are paid, and of course to control the rising cost of living, because basically, like we said, everybody working, mm-hmm, has a take-home pay. And that take-home pay should be able to take care of them. Yeah. But we realize that in this country, most take-home pays can't even take people home. And then that's really a recipe for, grooming an environment in which, corruption will fester. And I think that's something what one needs to look at. Not just to pay, improving their pay, their work environment, work conditions, but also to look at the rising cost of living and to ensure that that's curbed, and that people are able to take care of themselves in a very decent way, and they have opportunities to earn decently.
The government that was here, from President Jammeh's dictatorship, was largely characterized as a dictatorship. Do you share that view?
Well, it was a government that was based on the whims and caprices of an individual.
What do you call that?
It's autocratic to a good extent, really. And if you call it dictatorship, I don't know where the line is drawn between dictatorship and autocracy. Autocracy, yes. And I know that. And I know it was a military government that evolved into a civilian government. So yes, I wouldn't disagree, with that comment. But at the same time, you have to realize that each time the government subjected itself to elections, and at the end of the people will vote. They are
returning that government to power.
Yeah. I would say dictatorship in the sense that where there are no elections, nothing. completely. But people had the opportunity too. And we saw in 2016, when they really decided that they had enough, they had voted that government out of power.
Yes.
So the people also contributed to it.
So how was it like serving in such a government, in such a situation?
Well, I know it was difficult, but we kept a professional head. I mean, we dealt with him directly, especially when it came to management of some of the fleets, the airplanes. And we were always very professional. We gave our candid opinion about issues, and then most of the time, he agreed with our position.
But I know Jammeh can also be erratic sometimes. Has there been an occasion where he called you and shouted at you or said something?
He did not, but he detained me at some point.
What did you do?
Well, really, it wasn't quite clear, but during the investigations, they were asking about the reason why a particular airplane that belonged to the state was not allowed to fly, because it recently came back from maintenance from France.
Yes.
And, we did explain, because the actual airplane went for routine maintenance. The thing with airplanes is they go for checks based on either calendar or cycles. Calendar meaning after every 3 years, for example, a particular airplane, depending on its maintenance manual, is supposed to go in for a check.
Yeah.
Or, after every landings, for example, you need to change the landing gear, or you need to change certain things, there's life limited parts. But on this particular occasion, this particular aircraft went for an engine overhaul. The engines were due for shop check. And that was accomplished in France, in Toulouse. And they did all the testing and everything that was required. And, the plane flew back. But before it got back to Gambia, the pilots, the technical crew, reported that there were some malfunctions with some of the pressure valves. So if the plane flew over 25,000 feet, passengers or even the crew could get hypoxia, meaning, low oxygen. They could even go unconscious. So it had to fly below 25,000 feet. So they came back to Gambia, and the next day the First Lady was supposed to travel to, I think, Jeddah or to Medina for Umrah. And, when they reported that, of course, the crew thought, well, they could fly, they could do that service below 25,000 feet. And we had to assess that decision and taking into account the fact that we were approaching, that was June of 2016, we were approaching the rainy season, and we thought it wouldn't be wise to deploy a VIP flight to fly below 25,000 feet. It could be very rough. So we decided to alert the Office of the President to actually postpone for another 24 hours to allow the technical crew to troubleshoot and identify the valve that was malfunctioning and replace it, and so that the flight could proceed later than it was scheduled. But I don't think that went down well, with the state, because the understanding, and I guess there was some confusion in the understanding. It is from maintenance, so why would that happen? Yeah. But what we believe is that airplanes are as such that there are certain things that you don't control. Even a brand new airplane coming out of the factory, if you are going to fly on it, the safety briefings you get, they will tell you, as part of it will tell you, due to loss of, or if in an unlikely event of emergency or loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mass will drop, so which means they don't have any control over it. That's why it's in the safety briefings. Let alone an airplane that was around before I was born. That was a very old airplane. And for that to have a pressure malfunction, I think that was fairly normal. But then, it's just the way you get the news and the information. Yeah. Really. On this occasion, really, and like I said, in previous occasions, we had advised him against using an airplane until a certain maintenance action was initiated on the airplane. It was okay with him, but I didn't know what went wrong on this occasion.
And you were detained?
Yeah, we were in
and this
for
was
6 weeks.
a few months before his rule was overturned.
Yeah, this was the 27th of June 2016.
Would you consider or say that you're also a victim of the former government? We have a lot of victims. Would you also say you were a victim?
Well, you can look at it that way, because we thought we were discharging our duties faithfully to the state.
Did you see his defeat, the former president? You were still in the system, and all of a sudden, he lost the election. Did you see that coming?
Well, I felt things were not going in his favor because in discussions, even among civil servants at the time, you know that a lot of them were not in support of the system. I guess because they felt so traumatized and that they couldn't just see beyond the next day. You know, everyone was like, you know, we don't know what's going to happen the next day, you know, and nobody wanted to live a life of uncertainty. So even in our private discussions, you could feel that, and we could strongly feel that most of them wouldn't vote for him. And that for me accentuated during his last year in office.
And then you continued in your role, serving as aviation chief, and then you were removed. I've seen claims that you were removed because you were a sympathizer of a particular party, specifically UDP.
No,
this is what
in all fairness, you know, I wouldn't say that really, that I was removed because I was a sympathizer of any party.
Why were you?
You know, I mean, I wasn't removed in the first place. I was redeployed to foreign mission. So maybe that's synonymous to removal to you.
Of course, maybe government.
But I'm a public servant, and a public servant, you know, can be deployed anywhere, redeployed anywhere.
Did you take that redeployment?
No, eventually no, I did not take it.
Why?
No, actually what happened is, and in all fairness, you know, I was home and, you know, I reported to Ministry of Foreign Affairs,
yes,
you know, after the redeployment, but there was no redeployment for me for a very long time. Nobody seems to know exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I wasn't paid any salary for that period, you know. So I felt, well, you know, I mean, if you are, you know, in government work and you're formally engaged, you cannot take up other things. Yeah. You know, I needed to look after a lot of things. I needed to fend for my family. I had issues to whatever. So I decided that, well, you know, since nothing was coming to me and I wasn't really advised, I was just waiting in limbo, you know, I could move on to do other things.
Did you feel disappointed?
Well, yes, disappointed in the sense that because all my working life, I worked as a public servant. And I had real opportunities to take up other challenges beyond the source of the Gambia. But I felt, you know, my service was needed in this country. And that was something that we could do, you know, to move this country forward. You know, so if for any reason, you know, I've been moved from my job, you know, to be redeployed, I don't have any issues with that. Like I said, I'm a public servant. But if I'm not redeployed, then that in itself is something else. So yes, I was kind of disappointed. Yes.
Now you I mean, you were removed, and then
I was redeployed.
The redeployment, yes, that never came.
Yes.
That never was.
Yes.
The current political situation, there has been, since the 2016 change to now, there's been massive growth. There's been proliferation in terms of political parties, in terms of Gambians really who are interested in the country's top job, being president. You have all these leaders. Now you are part of those leaders. What is your take, really, on the current political situation?
Well, I know, we all know that we need to improve our political circumstances. I mean, there is a need for a very strong and a passionate leadership, you know, to take this country forward. And I am sure the reason why you have a proliferation of candidates is because most people also believe that, you know, something different could be done. I don't doubt the fact that every person who is vying for this position loves this country. You know, I mean, it must start with the love of country first. But we all seem to have our different formula in our minds as to what to do, you know, to bring about that needed difference in terms of improving the lives and livelihoods of this country. Most certainly, you know, the country needs some good political leadership. You know, if you walk away from what you call dictatorship, for me is autocracy. It's also autocratic, but some people do say that even a good democracy needs a touch of autocracy, you know, to make it happen. But having said that, you know, the fact that, you know, we now can come out, there is that degree of freedom, and democracy, and the people feel now they can now express themselves and talk about their ideas as to what to do to take this country forward. I think that in itself is a plus. But we created it as a people, really, because we felt that we were all in fetters prior to this government, and now we are unfettered. And then we have a government that, coming from that environment, is not an easy transition. You need very strong leadership, very focused leadership, visionary leadership, to navigate through. Because really, it's never really easy, to succeed an authoritarian or a dictatorship, as you call it, and I appreciate that. But I guess most people felt a bit disappointed. And the great promise, which was to bring about reform in some of the institutions and the statutes, the laws of this country, to prevent the recurrence of whatever it was that happened before, we didn't seem to make some sustained march, towards that goal.
You are saying the borough government or the coalition government did not really live up to the billing, live up to the people's expectation. Is that what you are saying?
Well, we expected quite a number of things that did not come to pass. For example, we expected to have a new constitution, and I know there are issues with that, but still not the case. We expected some reforms in the security sector. There is evidence that that's not the case, because we've seen the surge in the crime rates. We've also seen the presence of foreign troops like ECOMIC in the Gambia. So something is still missing in that security sector reform. So there were quite a number of things that we really looked at, even the bad and obnoxious laws that prevent the press from doing their job in a very professional way. So a lot of things are there really, and that have not been achieved. And I think, in my opinion, all of those were achievable in the first 5 years in office. So if you're still there and we're still going to go to elections based on the 1997 Constitution, it shows us that something major has not been achieved.
Now, you will be presenting yourself or selling yourself to the Gambian people as the best candidate. Yet, we have seen candidates, opponents, people that you will be rivaling for the job, say they are the best candidates. I mean, we've seen, for example, Esafal say, I am the best, I am the most accomplished, I am the most successful. I mean, how do you see that? The issue of having opponents who are laying claim to the issue of being the best.
I think the problem with that is the I. I mean, this is not about an individual, this is about a system. And the party is part of that political system. What we're selling to the people, the ideas, the agenda to the people, the manifesto, because that is the blueprint that tells us what we intend to do to make this country different. And that's not about me. No one individual can. This is about leadership. The role of a leader is not to do it himself. It's for the people to do it.
But the character of the leader matters. Voters also look at that, whether he is competent, whether he can really do the job.
Yeah, but competence is about your ability to work in a team environment and to pull the team with you. If you're talking about honesty, well, the public is to judge that. I wouldn't come here and incriminate myself in any way. You know what I'm saying?
But there is no harm in bragging a little.
No. Because that's the problem. Because what we end up doing in this country is to derail our leaders. The first thing they tell you in our local language is you are a Mansa. No, Mansa traditionally, we know Mansas are the law. What we're electing is a president. The president operates and works within the law. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about him. It's about the system. That's why we have parties. Independents can, yes, but when independents come, they still have to present a manifesto. And this is what I want to do. And that's what people will look at. And they mark that with their judgment of you as an individual, and then they will make a decision. That's what we expect. That aspect, my character, that's for the people to determine. But what I'm going to sell is the party's agenda. And this is not just my idea. It's everybody's idea. Everybody who is part of the party, who is also part of the development of the manifesto. Remember, our manifesto was not developed just by the party members. It was developed based on extensive consultation with the citizens of this country, with professionals, subject matter specialists, but with people also operating in different sectors of the economy.
Mr. Jammeh, I find your case a little intriguing. I mean, you are, someone who is carving his own path. In the Gambia for far too long, what we know is in politics, people tend to support their own. I mean, family, friend, loved one, however you call it. I mean, we come from the same region, we come from the same family. This is what matters most to people, a lot of people. I mean, UDP leader Dabo is your in-law. He has his own political party. One would expect you to to support him. Yet, here you are, creating your own way, your own high road in politics.
Well, they created my way for me.
I
did not create the party that selected me. Yeah, accepted. Yes. But what I can tell you is that's the beauty of democracy. I don't even expect my own kids, my wives, and friends to share my political opinion. This is about the country. We all live in the same space. We know what's better, what's good for us. So for me, that's the beauty of democracy. To have my in-law running as a front runner in a party is one of the biggest parties in the country. I mean, that's true, but that's family. And that relationship is here and hereafter. But politics is right here, and I agree, he's a very decent guy, and I know he is someone, who will offer this country some good service. But nonetheless, I believe that my party has the formula and the philosophy that's different and would be good for this country. So that's it. But so that politics is not affecting our relationship.
Did you speak to him about your plan? And what did he say?
Well, we speak as family, because at least...
Your politics?
Well, not to him directly. I have not. But we are family, so, there is always transmission of information as to what one is doing, or the other is doing, but for me that's not really a problem, and I know it's not a problem for him. Naturally say expected me to join him, but no, I'm an independent minded person, and I see politics differently, and I'm sure he appreciates that, and I know he also sees it differently.
I have seen claims too that your emergence could create problems for Humanist Party. You come from Badibu, the Badibu constituency is there, you come from a very respectable family, and a lot of people respect you in this country. But the one party that some people are saying that you could cause problems for is the UDP, in terms of the Badibu constituency and other parts of the country.
No, I disagree. We will cause problems for every party.
Every party.
Every party in this country. Yeah, I don't know why they are thinking that way, but we are out to get votes, and the votes are in every party, and they're also with the undecided. That's what we are out to do, not specifically targeting any party. So I think we'll get votes from every party.
What is your opinion? I know you've said this at your unveiling. What's your opinion on coalitions? But let's begin with APRC, NPP.
Well, coalition, I guess it's not a bad idea. Really, personally, I believe that there isn't any significant ideological difference between the parties. It's all about the programs they roll out as per their manifestos. And quite similar sometimes, because the problems are the same. Manifestos are meant to address problems of a country.
Yes.
And we all experience the same problems. And if you ask anybody, they will list same problems for you. So I don't have any issues with that. But I think if you're going to coalesce, you're going to coalesce on the basis of principle and not just for convenience. Like it appears that is what happened in 2016. It was a coalition of convenience, and that's why the government never really worked. You know, they were at each other's throat from the very first minute in government.
Yes.
So we see how it ended. So which means the basis were not right. You know, and that's what we need to focus on. So I have no problems with that. Now, parties going into coalition, I think it's a matter of choice for them. I said it before, and I know some people just blew it out of context to say, well, as I had no issues with APRC and NPP going into coalition. You know, but they just picked on one part of that statement.
What was the context for you here?
Yeah, yes, you know, and then, you know, left out the other part. You know, what I said is I think most people were concerned about the details of the agreement, whether it would not infringe on the rights of a certain segment of society we call the victims.
The victims,
you know, that's what I said.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think APRC is a bona fide party, NPP is a bona fide party in this country. There are no laws, no courts that ban both parties. You know, if the individuals feel they could come together, I mean, it's not for me to judge that. You know, but it's up to the electorates to see whether, you know, they take that kindly or not, yes, and express that, you know, at the ballots. That's what I would expect, you know, to happen. And we also need to be able to separate between government and a party. A party puts the government in place. Sometimes the conduct of the government be controlled by the party. It's just the nature of the way our parties are set up. And that's the uniqueness of NUP now. You know, because this party, when it's voted into office, the president cannot just decide to do whatever he wants to do.
What safeguards are you going to put in place?
Well, the party has a constitution. For example, we look at the governance structure of the party. And it says, you know, 2-term limits. It's not in the constitution of the government, but it's in the constitution.
Do you know that that would be illegal? Anything that runs contrary to the constitution is null and void, according to Gambian law.
No. I mean, that's the mistake.
Yes.
You know, these are associations.
Is the supreme law of the land. Yeah, I can give you an example. When President Barrow was being tapped, that was an agreement, 3 years. But the constitution says 5 years. So, I mean, they use that. His camp used that, relied on that to say, okay, this is what the constitution says. This is just a gentleman deal. So if you talk to legal experts, what they will tell you is that...
But it's different. But there was nothing wrong with him quitting office after 3 years.
That part is also there.
It's not illegal.
That is not illegal. That part is also there.
Yeah, so
but their argument is also very valid.
I don't disagree. Yes. That is valid. Yes. But there is also nothing wrong with staying in power for less than 5 years. 5 years. Yes. So similarly, there is nothing wrong. It's not in conflict with the constitution. Yes. If our party constitution decides that like Vieira, yes, or the leader of the party can only serve for 2 terms. Yes. It's not in contravention of any provisions of the constitution. Yes. Yes.
That is right. Yeah. That is right. But then what I'm saying, what I'm fearful of is you can have someone who is not Abdoulie Jammeh and selected by the party to come and say, hey, look.
But that's why it's important, yes, that the selection process has to be very thorough.
Yes.
You have to look for a lot of things.
And get the right people.
Yeah. If you make any missteps, you may stumble from it for the rest of your life. Yeah. So that's, for us, that's very key. And I think the process they followed to even come up with a candidate, I mean,
it's quite
really very thorough and very satisfied with it. And they made their point very clear.
I know the marriage between NPP and APRC has caused a lot of controversy, but also apprehension in the opposition side of the aisle. And you have experts saying a grand coalition is the way to go. It's how to respond, the way to respond to this alliance. I know there are talks between among 6 political parties. I understand your party is included, is part of this. Is this the case at all?
Well, it's true. But you know, I think people misunderstand one thing. What we have here is a mass party system. The electorates can vote anyway. What we need to do is to intensify the campaign in terms of what we have as provisions in our manifesto. You know, people tend to think, I mean, political parties are political parties, you know, but they don't control the votes. The voters, electors control the vote.
Yeah.
You know, so I believe, I have trust in the electorates. I believe that the level of political awareness is growing and very rapidly in this country. We've been out and about, you know, talking to electorates. On some of the questions they ask, I mean, it's very amazing. Very amazing. So I don't think people know that there is a major paradigm shift in terms of the political awareness of the electorates of this country. So I have trust in them. You know, with all the fanfare, whatever, you know, the actual argument will be made at the polls. You know, okay, to have a coalition, for me, that's not a problem. If we think we are like-minded, like I said, we don't have the communists and the capitalists or the conservatives and whatever, you know, the ideology is basically the same. It's just that we have different approaches in terms of how do we solve our problems as a country. You know, so if we can sort of create some synergy, that's fine. That's what the people need. The people just don't need a divided country. They need a country that comes together, but a country that can also move forward and provide for its citizens, you know, across all sectors, whether it's healthcare, agriculture, education, you know, all the things that we're looking at. So I don't have any issues with the coalition talks. I think it's a way to go too, but we are not going to coalesce just for the purpose of expediency, convenience, to get rid of, you know, a government. No, we're going to coalesce because we feel when we come together, we will be able to deliver a different Gambia, a more positive Gambia for the citizens of this country.
Let me ask you this question. Maybe it's a little premature to ask you that, but then, do you have a base at all? Because I know a base, if you talk to experts, they will tell you is a party needs to be tested first at the polls before you can even say it has a base. But do you have that? Do you have people, I mean, coming to join your party? Do you have?
On a daily basis, people are joining our party.
Are these in multitudes? Or
yes.
Few and
no, multitudes.
When they come, what did they tell you in terms of why they choose your party?
They talk about their frustrations with everything else that's happening politically in the Gambia. And they also know about the story of our party, how it came into being, you know, and how we've come to this level, you know, and they feel, well, you know, they can associate themselves with us. Because each time we talk to them about our manifesto, our plans, we don't talk about any political party. We don't do any mudslinging. We don't do anything that's negative. You know, we always focus on the message. And the message is what we have in our manifesto.
But do you think that resonates with Gambians? Because some will tell you Gambian people, what they enjoy is politics of insult.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's why our approach is different. Like I said, we will do a mega rally. But we have outreach programs, how we visit people in their homes, in their kitchens, in their backyards, you know, in their vools, you know, to talk to them, create more time to talk to them. I mean, ours is kind of synonymous with the Obama approach. Yeah. You know, it's the opportunity to not just tell them what our manifesto is all about, but also to educate them, for them to know the value of the votes that they hold and how that could be a life changer, you know, and how they shouldn't mess up with the opportunity. You know, so that's what we're doing, and it's very effective. You know, that verdict will be made when we go to the polls. And I'll tell you one thing, on the 9th of October, we planned a mega rally.
Yes.
Well, that's just a statement rally. You see what we're going to do.
Where?
In Brikama.
In Brikama?
SSP, yeah.
SSP?
SSP, yes.
Is it because your party, SG, is from Brikama? So
well, you know, I come from everywhere in Gambia, you know. Not just Brikama. Yeah. But, you know, like, yes, we want to start with Brikama, and we also want to visit all the major towns in the country. But we'll also be doing our caravan tour, you know, to reach out to all the folks of the country.
Where do you get your money as a party? I understand some of you guys are, well, some of you people are deep-pocketed.
No.
Where do you get your money?
I heard you say something like that on TikTok. I said,
me? Was it me?
Where he's getting...
Was it me?
No, I don't have a deep pocket. My pocket is very shallow. You know,
I like the humility.
No. It's very shallow, really.
Yes.
And you know, we get from members' contributions. You know, from friends, the diaspora, from around. You know, so that's what we do. You know, basically, and as a policy, in fact, we do set up some GoFundMe programs, you know, but as a party, we are not looking at any big bankroller who will come and, you know,
quid pro quo.
Yeah, you know,
I will give you money, but when you win.
Yeah. So we don't do that. We want to have a good latitude, the freedom, you know, to sort of carry out programs and policies for this country without feeling owned by somebody else. And, you know, so we believe in that. So it's members' contribution, what we can do, the different things, you know, GoFundMe, whatever, to see how we progress with our campaign. But we're not deep-pocketed, you know. There are no deep pockets here. Maybe you need to contribute. I think we're going to come to Factory Network to also fund.
Let's see how that goes. On Saturday there was a summit of political parties in Janjambure, the signing of the peace accord. Did your party take part in that?
Yeah, the party took part. In fact, the deputy party leader represented us there. I'm yet to meet with her to get a debrief. You know, yes, but we participated, yeah.
But that is a problem, because at that meeting they wanted all the party leaders to be there to sign themselves, to personally append their signature.
Well, because it actually coincided with some very important program that we had scheduled, you know, and you know, we decided that we'll be represented at the highest possible level, and that was the deputy party leader that was there, you know, to do that, you know. So we never treated it with any slight, you know, just that, you know, sometimes you have to reorder your priorities and do what you think is best. But in any case, we were represented.
Women and youth will be the biggest stakeholders in the December election.
Yeah.
They form the majority, actually. What is your plan for these two when you take power?
Well, we do have plans for both, for women, whether in agriculture, in healthcare, in skills development, and of course, in terms also funding. Credit unions and enterprise development fund is something that we said we're going to create, you know, to support innovation and youth activity and women activity. These are all things that we really want to do, but we also want to strengthen vocational education in the country so that the youth of this country and even the women will not only rely on government employment, but they themselves will be able to create employments for themselves. So it's skills-based training. Education is also something that we're looking at, you know. So there are a host of things, a whole spectrum of initiatives that we have to strengthen what we consider as a vulnerable group of society, the women and youth.
Finally, the IEC, they are going to be the most important stakeholder in the December election. What is your assessment of the IEC? Do you believe they have what it takes? They are prepared enough to ensuring that they really do a good job in December?
I have no doubt that they will do a good job. I don't have a doubt. But I still know there is still some work to be done. And no system is perfect, really. No matter how hard you prepare, there will be some shortfalls, you know, somewhere. You know, and I know not everybody will be 100% pleased with everything that's happening, you know, around the IEC, but that doesn't mean that they will not do a good job. I mean, they'll do a good job within the means, you know, available to them. That's the trust I have, and that's what we should have. And now we have the opportunity to challenge the different things that don't make us as political parties comfortable you know, we can still address to them and say what we think. And I know that we have different platforms to lodge our concerns. So for me, you know, I have no reason at this point in time, you know, to think or to allege that, you know, they don't have the competence to conduct a good and a sound elections.
If you are to speak to one Gambian voter directly, and I'll take that to be your final question. Directly.
Your final is never final. Let's continue.
But if you are to speak to one Gambian voter directly right now, as a way of convincing the person to vote for you, what would you tell the person?
Well, I'll say to the person, vote for NEP. This is a selfless party, a party that's very obsessed with what we call legacy, a party that believes that life is transient, is very short-lived, but man can be immortalized by the good things that he does. So this is a party that is really determined to leave a legacy, positive legacy that will linger on for the rest of time. And whether you're a youth or a woman or an elderly person, this is the party that will preserve your dignity at the various stages of your life, either in old age or in youth or as a woman. This is the party that will do that. And the evidence of that you will find in our manifesto.
Mr. Abdoulie Jammeh, thank you for coming on my show. Appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be able to get another interview where we will do it in the local language, Mandinka or Wolof.
No problem. No problem.
I think
thank you very much.
It's
a pleasure. It's a pleasure being on your program. I think it's a great program. You've asked good questions, you know, and I hope, you know, we've been able to give the answers that the public will
that you've been able to do justice to all of the questions. Thank you very much once again for coming.
Thank you.
So that is Abdoulie Jammeh. He's the presidential candidate of National Unity Party. He was my guest today. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you.